Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cricket Company podcast. Today we have someone who can be regarded as a cricket tragic in every sense of the word, a trendsetter and pioneer in cricketing coverage, someone who's donned multiple hats right from broadcast to filmmaking to an analyst. We have the most lovable personality covering our sport today, Jarrod Kimber on board. Thank you so much, Jarrod. It's an absolute honor having you.
Thank
No
you
worries.
for
I'm just wearing my normal hat today.
Great, great, great. So yeah, we just start off.
yeah. So we'll start with a very basic question. So from where did your cricket journey start? Like as a kid, when did you actually start watching the game? And when did you actually decide that you want to make a profession out of this? When did you decide it was time that you finally wanted to enter this field? How did that journey take place?
My family played cricket, so I was watching my father play cricket when I was about a week and a half old. So from that perspective, it's not when did I choose to watch cricket. I was just watching cricket. As far as professionally, it was by accident. I was trying to become a filmmaker, realistically, and writing screenplays was the thing I was looking at doing. And that didn't go particularly well for me, and I started a cricket blog because I had some downtime. And it turned out that people liked my cricket writing, and I was being offered work. So I was broke, and someone was offering me money. I became a cricket writer. It's kind of that, I think, more than anything.
Right. So you spoke about your blog, which is I think your first blog was Cricket with Balls, and then you moved on to Cricinfo, right? So and now today again you are back on Substack writing your individual blogs, the Sports Almanac of Jarrod Kimber. So can you just tell us what are the major differences between writing for a global publication versus going solo, and what really pushed you towards coming back to your individual blog after a very successful and long stint at Cricinfo?
Unemployment. What is the difference between a blog and Cricinfo? And it would be typos. Also, I can write whatever I want, I suppose, is the most obvious answer. It's not that ESPN were particularly harsh on what I wrote, but, occasionally it had to pass through a few different people. During world events, sometimes the editors would be more interested in what I was writing than other times. So I suppose those are the difference. But yeah, I came back to writing partly because I just hadn't written a lot. I think I finished writing with Cricinfo for the World Cup, so in 2019. I wrote a couple of pieces on Medium, I think, during the 2019 Ashes, and then just didn't write much. And to be honest, I may have had a million jobs in cricket, but fundamentally, everything comes from writing. Even me being an analyst comes from writing, or me being a general manager. And I just wanted to get those ideas back out there, I think, as much as anything. So I got to the point where I wasn't writing, and it was a bit of a problem for me. And I saw this thing called Substack, and it seemed to be something interesting that I could build up quite easily. And luckily enough, India kept playing test matches, which probably doubled my amount of reads that I would normally have got. But yeah, it's just I'm a writer. I write every day of my life, and whether it's about cricket or anything for the rest of my life. And writing about it probably got to the point where I was getting a bit. I was just getting a feel to come back to it. And I've still written for Cricinfo. I've done some freelance stuff for them. I've done some writing for The Cricketer. So I've done some writing for some other places. I just wrote a piece for a football magazine called The Blizzard. And so there's certainly been other work, and I've been talking to other organizations about doing writing for them. But I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to cricket, and Substack seems to be a good place to get some of those out.
So if you had to point out to just one exact reason as to why you chose to go on a sabbatical from Cricinfo, would it be control or would it be some other reason?
No. The first time I left Cricinfo was 2018, and it was to work with St. Lucia Stars. So I couldn't work for a cricket team in a cricket tournament and still be working for Cricinfo. That wasn't fair to them. It didn't make any sense for me. And straight after the St. Lucia Stars job, I had a job with Melbourne Stars. So I already knew that I was covered financially. So going back to Cricinfo in the middle didn't make any sense. At that stage, TalkSport started getting the rights for the radio, which is something else I really like doing. It's a bit. I've done a bit of commentary before, but it was the first time I knew I was going to have a long run at it. I knew TalkSport had, I don't know, 3 or 4 series rights, and also I was involved in the ground level there of building up their coverage, which is something that I've done for ABC before. So it's something I really like doing. One thing you become an expert on when you watch as much cricket as I do is the way that cricket should be broadcast, even if you're not a broadcast expert yourself. Although I've learned a lot over the last few years, but no, I left for those opportunities, and then to be fair to Cricinfo, I think they had I'm trying to think why they brought me back. I know they brought me back for the World Cup, but I think there was another reason they brought me back as well. And then that contract ended, and again I went off to work with Cricket Scotland. I went to do more TalkSport work. I had a bunch of other jobs lined up, Bangladesh Premier League jobs. I looked like I was going to get an IPL job at that stage, and everything was. There was no reason to go back to Cricinfo. I could still write for them when I wanted to. I could write features for them when I wanted to, but there was no real reason to go back to them. And then COVID happened, and I realized, well, I probably should have gone back just so I at least had some money coming in. But no, I will happily go back to Cricinfo. The same that I would happily work for anyone. Realistically, I just like writing about cricket. And if someone's going to pay me to do it, it makes it an easier thing. The Substack is a very personal thing, whereas I think more often than not, on the working for Cricinfo, or if I was to work for the Cricketer or CricBuzz or Cricket.com or anything with cricket in its name, I'd probably write more feature-led stuff as a general rule. So Substack, it becomes a different sort of thing for me at that point.
Right.
You spoke about your love for writing and how you used to enjoy that so much. Versus how was that versus actually working with the teams, like when you worked with St. Lucia or when you worked with Melbourne Stars? How was that experience different from actually what you've done as a writer? Because as an analyst, working is obviously very different. So how was that experience for you?
There's no pressure like working for a professional sporting organization when they're losing. Everyone's got an opinion. The players are frustrated. The coaches are frustrated. The owner's frustrated. It's not an easy thing of just play better. It's completely different to writing. I remember saying this to an English journalist who didn't quite get it. And I said, it's quite interesting. I don't feel a lot of pressure when I write. That's not to say I'm not trying to get stuff right. And that I am not looking for, you can still make factual errors or opinion errors or, stuff up something in your writing. So there's every time you are publishing or broadcasting something, there is a pressure there. There is a lot more pressure coming off the field with the captain of your team when you are losing. You've just lost the game that you should have won. It's a completely different. It's a different world of pressure. So that was quite different. I've now worked with a few teams. And it's always the same. You lose a game that you shouldn't lose. You lose a couple of games that you shouldn't lose. You get into a losing season that you shouldn't have. Conversely, it's completely opposite too. Being with Scotland when they won when they qualified for the World Cup was an incredible experience. Being with Melbourne Stars when they went from last to making the final was an incredible experience. But I've certainly been on both sides. So I'd say working in professional cricket, there's a bigger roller coaster. And it's certainly a lot more emotional than writing on cricket, but it's a completely different skill. Skill set. There's a difference. There's really important stuff that I've written on Cricinfo using analytics and data that is really, really important. That means absolutely nothing to a player. They just don't need to know it. They don't care about it. It's just not a thing that they need to know about. And so, you have that kind of situation there. So I think that is for me what I have certainly learned between those two things.
Right. So Jarrod, let's now move on to one aspect which you started off with, which was filmmaking. I think that is not as talked about aspect of your career. You directed a documentary called Death of a Gentleman with Sam Collins. What was the motivation behind really going behind the camera and making a documentary? I mean, where did it stem from that, yes, I need to make this documentary? What were the roadblocks, right? And what did you exactly learn from the whole filmmaking experience?
So I was always a documentary filmmaker. It's just that none of my films were particularly big, so no one knew about them. But I'd made a bunch of shorter documentaries before. It was probably my main strength as a filmmaker was probably documentaries, even if I probably prefer to write fiction more. And we had come up with this video series, myself and Sam Collins, and we had pushed it as far as it could currently go in that system of ESPN. ESPN didn't quite get it. They didn't quite know what to do with it. It wasn't pushed on YouTube. If it was pushed on YouTube, it probably would have ended up with 1 million views per episode if it was pushed and kept and done everything correctly, but it wasn't. And Sam wasn't getting paid a lot for it. There was a lot of sort of little issues going on with it. And we just wanted to do something more. And so we thought a documentary would be fun. Sam thought it would be fun. I knew it would be horrendous, but that's because I'd made them before. Eventually, we got my friend Johnny Blank in to help us direct it. So he's another co-director of that. We ended up with a crew. What did I learn? I learned a lot as a writer. I probably learned more as a writer in the period of making that film. I learned a lot about how cricket is really run politically, but also on a sort of a social level. You realize, you get someone like Eddie Cowan to be in that film, and everyone in cricket's like, you only got him because it was his first test. If that was his 10th test, he would have already been annoyed at you and not done it. Sorry, Eddie, but that's probably true, I think. We learn a lot about powerful men and what they will do to try and ruin your career, what they will do to try and stop a project like this coming out, how they will try and smear you. There was a great moment where someone, I don't know who, tried to sell a story to a major English newspaper that Lalit Modi had paid for our film. And we did say to the newspaper, please print that because we will be able to recoup our losses from the film by suing you. Sadly, they did not. But yeah, we learned a lot about those sorts of things. And at the start, I probably still would have been I was a global cricket writer already by that point, and I probably would have been in the 10 experts in the world in how the game was run. But I probably came out of that as one of the top couple of people in the world who understood how cricket was run around the world, because we had to. And Sam the same. Sam probably went from not being in the top 100 to, being in the top couple. And for a little while, I remember turning up to a cricket ground in South Africa in 2013, and my name wasn't on the press release because I was on the press list because I was working for ABC and they had forgot to get me a press pass. And somehow I just convinced everyone at the ground to let me in. I don't know how I got into the ground without a ticket, but I did. Then I got into the press box without a badge. Not the greatest security in the world in South African cricket at that point. And then as I got in, there was like a fairly substantial person in Cricket South Africa there who saw me. And I went up sort of casually to say, hey, mate, there's a problem. I don't have a press pass. Can you help me out? And he was like, Jarrod Kimber, what are you doing here? So I'm here to cover the series for ABC. And he's like, you're not writing about anything about cricket politics, are you? And you suddenly realize that there was this big sort of, I'd gone from being the guy who wrote funny things on cricket with balls to being this like the political writer of cricket. And it was very interesting because there had not really been anyone like me before. In many ways, no one had ever covered global cricket like I had before, or really at all. Certainly no one had ever looked at the cricket politics as a full-time gig before. And you suddenly realize that, your stature within the game from being that arsehole who wrote things on blogs to being that arsehole who wrote things on cricket politics. And it was, it caused a lot of interesting issues for me professionally.
So would you call the filmmaking experience of that documentary up till now the most rewarding and enriching experience, or something beats that as well?
Don't know. It was long. It went for 4 years to get that film out. So I suppose there is that, had the film crew living in our house for a lot of it. So my wife may not remember it as fondly as everyone else does. I have a conversation with a friend of mine called Neil Manthorpe, who obviously is a cricket commentator and a cricket writer. And he said, what do you think you'll be remembered for, like the book on the history of Test cricket or the documentary? And I said, probably the documentary. And he said, the book's probably a more important work, all things considered, in that no one had ever really looked at the history of Test cricket with all the nations involved. look, I don't know if I've done my best work yet, or what I will look back on. I think I'm still youngish. I look younger than I actually am, I think, luckily for me. But yeah, I think I don't know. It was such a huge thing. Me and Sam went from being best friends, and we don't talk much anymore. And I don't mean we don't talk much anymore in that we're not friends anymore. It's just that we were living in each other's pockets for 4 years. There was a lot of stress in making that film, financially and politically and everything else. And me and Sam probably feel like we lived a lifetime together in 4.5 years or 5 years that we worked, those 5 years that we worked together all together. Look, it's an important thing that I did. I think maybe with my career, looking back, it will be one of many things that I am proud of rather than the thing that I am proud of.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
You have also entered the YouTube line now. So now you have your own YouTube channel. So how did that?
Yeah. Whoa. Sorry. What's my YouTube channel called? Did you just say that? Did you say the name of it? No. No. Jarrod Kimber is my YouTube channel. Just make sure that you get that out there. Is that, saying it. Don't just say I've got a YouTube channel. We've got to pimp that YouTube channel,
Yes,
my friends.
Absolutely.
So how did that journey go? Like, when did you decide you want to enter YouTube? And is that a permanent thing? Are you looking at it as a long-term thing, or is it just a short-term venture?
No, certainly looking at it as a long-term thing. So I started in YouTube in, you'd have to go back. It was 2007 or 2008. So YouTube wasn't even that much of a thing. Certainly not like it is now back then. And I did a couple of videos because I was a filmmaker writing about cricket. So I figured I'll put some videos up. And some of them, I think some of the videos have, 3, 4, 500,000 views. There's only a handful of them out there. I didn't do that many. And then in 2011, I went back to YouTube to do my show with Sam Collins, which was called Two Pricks at the Ashes, which was the first thing that we did that we eventually sold to CricInfo that led to me working with them. And again, I was on YouTube then, so I kind of worked it out. But my big thing was that because I'd done it in 2008, because I'd done it in 2011 and 12, I didn't want to do, hey guys, you're watching my YouTube channel. Here's me. Here's my face. Subscribe to the comments below and all that sort of nonsense. Not that you subscribe to the comments, but you know what I mean. I just didn't want to do that. I'd already been on YouTube. I'd already done that. And so my friend Ari Yutsu, who I worked with at CricInfo, he kept doing all this stuff, and he was working with Akash Chopra, and then he would work with Brett Hogg and Snehal and all these different people. And was doing quite well with them. And he kept saying, you're made for this. You want to do this? And I was like, look, mate, I'm not being rude, but the thought of me sitting in front of a fucking webcam and, blurting on about something I don't give a shit about, I'm just not going to do it. And then I came up, I've got this podcast series on the history of cricket called Double Century. And I said to him, look, man, I'm going to be writing these scripts anyway. And they're going to be about 15 to 20 minutes long. I'm more than happy to give them to you and you can animate them and put them up. And he's like, great, finally, you're going to come to YouTube. And at that stage, I still wasn't really thinking that much about it. And then I don't know what happened, but he was telling me about how they were doing the animation. And he sent me like this graph, and I can't remember. I think it was called Whiteboard Football or something to do. It was a football channel with a whiteboard anyway. And so he sends me this thing and says, this is the kind of animation that we can do, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, mate, if we can do this, why don't I just write little scripts explaining things on cricket? Like a Cricket Explainer series. And he's like, yeah, let's do that. And so I went to CricInfo and CricBuzz, and they both seemed quite keen, but CricInfo gave me the deal. So I think I did 10 episodes with them on that. And they were, some of them did very well on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. But the YouTube videos didn't go very well because they were quite short. And then I was learning more and more about this and trying to push them and trying to work out how to make them better. And I really figured that, I didn't know this was a thing, but I really figured there must be a way for me to write a feature that I could make into a video. But I couldn't work out how that would work and how we would do it. And I was sort of coming closer and closer and closer to it. And the more videos I would put up, the more people would mention this guy called John Boyce, who's this American guy who does a lot of American sports. And at this stage, by this stage, I already knew I wanted to make a longer form video. And then I started looking at his content and was like, oh, it doesn't need to be. I always think it needed to be like a documentary. And then you realize that you can create your own documentary style through your work. And so I said to Aria, look, let's forget John Boyce. He has his own style, but I think I can do a presentation. Basically, I can make a slideshow on Canva that I can narrate with like a written article, and that Aria could come in and then animate. And so I already had this piece written about the most improved player in Test cricket, which was probably like a 7,000 word feature that I had been writing. But I didn't have it for anyone. I didn't even know if I was going to sell it to Cricinfo or anyone else. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to make this and see what you can do. And he puts it up. And straight away, other videos were getting like 300 or 400 hits on the first day. They just weren't going anywhere. And that one got like 1,000 on the first day and got another 1,000 on the second day. And suddenly you're just like, this is what I can do. And John Boyce is a big inspiration in freeing my mind, but there's other guys out there like Foolish Baseball, and there's a lot of guys who do video essays on movies and stuff. By the end, I just sort of went, I'm going to see how they present their stuff. But what I really want this to be is not to be anything like what they're creating. What I want to be able to do here is to be able to make a essay from the sorts of things that I write about. And that was my big thing. And once I did that, it's the most excited I've been about writing, because it almost goes back to my roots as a filmmaker. Like there's a combination there between screenwriting and cricket with balls, the original website, using obviously a lot of stuff I learned with Cricinfo and a lot of stuff I learned from making the film. And so for me, those YouTube videos are, the only reason I would stop making them is if I legitimately found a better way to make them, or found a more entertaining thing in the future. Like, I don't know, some version of Twitter and Clubhouse and YouTube all mixed up where I can do the same thing, and I know you can smell the videos or something in 30 years time or something weird like that. So I really got to the point where this is almost the perfect thing. I remember, I always thought that I would eventually get to a point where I would hire a illustrator to work with. Hunter S. Thompson, always had illustrations in his work. And it's something that I've always tried to like get a relationship with an illustrator. I actually tried to do an Ashes comic book once, but no one would buy it, which is a real shame, because the artist I got he was incredible. And it was absolutely brilliant. I learned a lot about visual stuff there. And this is kind of like a combination of all of those different things that I am very interested in. So for me, YouTube is a long haul. I mean, if you've been on the YouTube for the first 6 months, no one was there. Like, we weren't getting any hits, man. Like, no one was coming on board, and people on my Twitter were getting it, but it didn't pick up on YouTube. And I was getting messages from friends going, you've tried. You had a good go at this and it didn't work. And I was thinking, no, I think I'm going to do this for a long time, and it's just going to eventually work. And so that was my thing. And it has certainly worked now, and I'm certainly getting more work through those videos than I have before. I would like it to be in the future that, I know, The Guardian or ESPN get me to write a piece and I can do a video with it. So I could literally do both. But I really, really enjoy it. And I find it a fascinating way to get stuff across. And also, like, one thing I started doing with Cricinfo towards the end of my time there was writing really data-led pieces. So, putting up a lot of graphs and charts and things in the piece. And the problem with that is that it's good. It's a really good way of getting information across, and people really like it. But you have to stop reading the words to go to the thing, and then you have to go back up. There's a natural... And the great thing about the video is, and this is something that we learned over time, and I probably should have just watched the John Boyce stuff closer and worked this out, but it's just like, you just put the chart up on the screen and then you talk. and the things go together. And then I can direct you to the bit I need you to look at now while I'm talking and explaining why I have shown you this. It's a fascinating way of doing all those sorts of things. And, you know, as someone who is a filmmaker and a podcaster, it's a very, very like good, and a writer, it's a very good mix of all the things I do well, if you know what I mean, together.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not trained. I've never been trained to be a writer. The only training I ever did was a little bit of screenwriting at film school. And even then, I don't think I passed that module. I've never actually been trained to be a writer. One of the few things I've actually been trained to do and used to have a certificate of somewhere was to be a film editor. So, you know, being able to use those skills is quite handy. And then I had to have Aria and his production company to make them all look better. It's just such an advantage for me.
I think the
Right.
fact that it's something so unique and you actually enjoy it so much is what draws people towards it. Just hearing you talk about it actually makes us excited about it. So I can totally.
Right. Jarrod, it's an honest admission. Till yesterday, the Neil Wagner video essay was my favorite, but now it's changed to the European cricket analysis. Do you think you'll be able to bring out a more entertaining video than this one? I mean, that tops it all, right?
Whether it'll be more entertaining, I don't know. But what I know is this: there's a couple of videos that I have that will make the Neil Wagner one and the European cricket video look very small fry. There's a project that I've been working on for quite a while, which is, it's just epic. It's the stupidest topic I've ever taken up, but it's so brilliant. And the stories and the data and everything that come out of it are just, it's incredible. And I cannot wait to get that made. It'll probably take another 6 months at this rate to be able to get it out there. But what I have found is that it's kind of, there's a limitless nature to this. And you know, realistically at the moment, even though Aria's company, which is they're called 42, are supporting me, I don't have anyone working full time on the channel yet. Like, imagine what I can do when I have, you know, a team, one graphic designer, maybe one data scientist, you know, one animator, all working together on this with Aria's company helping us out with social and everything. At the moment, I'm like you're here, and behind you guys on the Zoom, I have my script, I have my Excel spreadsheet, I have my Canva open, I have my data wrapper open. Later, I'll have my Doodly open. You know, I'm putting these, it's very one-man band at the moment. What I'll be able to do with some of these topics going forward, I think will probably blow a few people's minds. And it won't just be me, like I'm doing them now. Hopefully within the next 2 or 3 years, there's a bunch of people doing this, because I think it's a really important thing. Cricket, it's just a bit too far behind in this sort of stuff, and someone like me probably should have done this years ago. But you know, that's when you need to leave ESPN. When I sold this to ESPN, they didn't want long ones; they wanted the short ones, and now ESPN have sidled back up, going, so about these longer videos. So you know, you kind of have to make them and prove that they work at a certain point.
Right. I think that's very fascinating. And everyone, you heard it first here that Jarrod's most exciting project is going to come out very soon. Okay, so Jarrod, just one last question. I mean, we live in a country which is absolutely cricket fanatic country, right? And everyone, of course, does not get to play for the national team and the IPL teams or whatever. So a lot of us want to get into the fields of writing, broadcast, etc. Right? And you are someone who's donned almost every hat. What is one advice you would like to give aspiring writers, broadcasters, filmmakers to get into the field? What is one piece of advice which you think would help us get into the industry?
Do something that other people aren't doing. That the biggest problem is everyone goes, oh, I'm going to do what that person's doing. Do what they're not doing. If you were to start a website now, like cricket website now, right? Why would you try and do what CricInfo or CricBuzz are doing? You would do the opposite. You would do the things that they're not doing. That's how business people think about these things, right? That's how entrepreneurs think about these things. That's what you are. You're an entrepreneur, and you're the product. You're the brand. From 2007 onwards, go through the amount of people who've tried to write like I write, and look at how many have actually forged careers. Very few have. Most of the ones who have forged careers have gone on to be their own character or their own, or covering their own topics, right? That's what you have to do. That is how you break into this industry. You become an expert in something that no one else has become an expert in. You cover the thing that no one else has covered. I promise you, there are so many open goals available in cricket media, and people aren't doing them. They're not covering them. So, realistically, that is what people have to do.
Right, absolutely. I think that's very sound advice, and hopefully a lot of us work towards that. And that's that, Jarrod. I think we had a lovely, wonderful conversation with you. It was an absolute pleasure having you on board. And we look forward to a lot of more entertaining content from you, because you are someone I think a lot of people look up to.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Did you say that my YouTube channel is called Jarrod Kimber? And
Yes,
Jarrod, is that what you said?
guys, you have to go and subscribe to Jarrod Kimber's YouTube channel right now, right away. All right, it's a matter of pride for us. Show what 1.3 billion Indians can do, right? Go for it.
Beautiful. Thanks a lot, guys. Good luck with your videos, and I'll chat to you soon. Have a good one.
Thank you so much, Jarrod. Take care. Thank you so much.
The Cricket Company Podcast.